Hello everybody! Today is another instance of AIOps Explained. We are in the mini-series of IBM Cloud Pak for AIOps version 4.5 release news, and in this video today we're going to talk about custom dashboards in a deep dive. So that is about Cognos Analytics, where it's used, how it's installed, and all these kind of things. And that is going to be explained and detailed and shown by Joshua Suckling. He is a software engineer of IBM Research and Development. And before we're going into details, I'd like to show you what is the totality of this mini-series. So all these topics are covered in individual videos. We have cut them down because all of that would be far too long for a single video, multiple hours. Today we're concentrating on this piece, custom dashboards and reporting with Cognos Analytics. But before I'm going to hand over to Joshua, this is the link to the documentation. If you are looking in the IBM Cloud Pak for AIOps 4.5.1 latest release, have a search for Cognos Analytics, then you will see a number of links, and this is a good starting point for reading. So there's configuration, of course, as installation, quite a number of topics covered in the documentation, and you should do it before you start fiddling around without any explanations of how all these two packages interact, because the Cloud Pak itself is quite a beast. Cognos Analytics is not yet really totally integrated into the whole thing, so there are coming versions where we want to make that way easier to integrate these two packages, but at the moment they're separate and they need to be integrated, and therefore there are a few more steps to do before everything works. But I'm not the expert, that is my colleague, and with that I'd like to hand over. Thank you. Take it away.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is going to talk about the Cognos Analytics integration that we've added in 4.5. Important to note that this presentation is just going to cover some of the UX and some of the data pieces, but also really important to note is that this is a tech preview. There's a lot more to come in this space, and you'll be hearing more about that in due course. But yeah, it's a tech preview, so please don't expect this to cover every last use case available for dashboarding, reporting, and data extraction. Going to jump straight in. So as said, tech preview in 4.5. And essentially what we've done is we've introduced Cognos Analytics as part of the Cloud Pak for AIOps deployment process. It's done at arm's length. It's not sort of tightly integrated into the install. It's completely optional, requires a set of scripts that you can pull to achieve this. But ultimately the result is that you get Cognos Analytics alongside Cloud Pak for AIOps and some elements of integration between the two, such as the widgets that you'll see and a couple of other bits and pieces. So as mentioned, there's lots more to come, and a few of the key things are listed here. One of the key ones, obviously, is the install process. At the moment, it's using some Ansible scripts and provides a pretty rudimentary way of getting Cognos Analytics laid down, and that's something we'd like to try and improve in the future. One of the big ones that's still to come, and that should come in 4.6, is the new data connector. And we'll talk about data flow in another slide later on. Third one, the smaller footprint. Cognos is quite sizable at the moment, but they are releasing a new architecture that we're going to try and adopt later this year that will be a much more minimal containerized version that should just scale up from pretty much zero, depending on use cases. And then also some out-of-the-box examples and schemas to help production deployments on day one, and then also some improvements to our widgets. What do you actually get with this deployment? So one of the key things is obviously the access to Cognos, and it will be available directly from the AIOps navigation. So we're going to have this new visualization section and a direct link into Cognos, and that will take you into the Cognos UI itself. Obviously, there is SSO between the two UIs, so you won't need to log in again or any of that business. It's the same users and user groups, but there are some caveats for access control to the individual items and permissions on the whole, which I'll talk about in a second. Then a couple of widgets that we've introduced in the 4.5 release. So the alert list and the topology viewer are the two that we support, and we're hoping to extend that to the incident list and the topology GIS viewer in the future. And then the last point there is that it is actually possible to embed content that you've created in Cognos Analytics back into AIOps using our existing dashboarding toolkit. Quick overview of the sort of deployment architecture. So essentially, all of the deployment scripts live in our public GitHub repo, Cloud Pak samples. And within there, you get an Ansible playbook that can essentially deploy Cognos Analytics. It does also deploy a couple of other pieces, such as DB2, and that's necessary for one of the data stores that Cognos requires. And one of the other key things that the playbook deploys is the config map for the UI extension, and essentially gives you the navigation entry. Additionally, from the samples repo, you can also get the widgets that you can use in Cognos. In future, this dotted line we'd like to make solid and have that done as part of the playbook. But again, that's sort of work to do. And as I said, it's a tech preview. A quick note on user access. So once you've got it deployed, essentially between Cloud Pak for AIOps and Cognos Analytics, the user management is kind of handled independently. So whilst you've still got your users and user groups in Zen, the roles that you have are sort of separate in each. So in Cloud Pak for AIOps, you may have an operator to which you can assign these view CA dashboards and manage CA dashboards permissions. But in Cognos, you'll need to have a separate role and these separate permissions applied to actually interact with dashboards and create dashboards, etc. Obviously, it's a shame that you can't manage all of these in one place and have to do it independently, but that's currently the architecture that the Cognos cartridge has. It's not as tightly integrated into Zen as we are. The two widgets that I mentioned before, the alert list and the topology viewer, as said, they can be found in this public repo of ours and then downloaded from there. And it's a really straightforward process to get them into Cognos. You simply go to the customization section, upload the extensions here. You literally just drop a zip file in, and then the result is that you get access to these two widgets in the builder. And just like any other visualization in Cognos, it's a simple drag and drop experience. You can expand and collapse them as much as you want, and can also apply some properties. So for the alert list, for example, you can control which filter you want to show on the alert list, the view, and then a couple of other bits and pieces. Okay, so once you've got users in place, you've got some widgets imported, ready to use. One of the key things you're going to need is some data for Cognos. So the way it works is that Cognos is using a sort of intermediary database for alert data and also potentially incident data in the future in topology 2. Right now, what we have to do is take the data out of Cloud Pak for AIOps into this database, and then that can be pulled back into Cognos Analytics. Now, Cognos Analytics can also support multiple data sources, so you could pull in other contextual data that you've got stored from any of the databases that Cognos supports, providing the purposes, of course, for AIOps use cases. However, one of the gotchas we've got in 4.5 is that the connector designed to pump this data out doesn't exist, and that's coming in 4.6. So in the meantime, you can achieve this data flow by using Impact. So if you've got clients that are interested in and you want to do POCs with them using this, then you can use the following flow to get data out using Impact. It seems quite long-winded, but it's pretty straightforward once you've got a separate database set up. It's just a couple of policies and the data models. And then for resources, we've just got the main repo that was mentioned, and then also the docs. The docs are pretty good for 4.5, and as well make lots of references to the Cognos docs, which themselves are pretty good. Within those, there are some really thorough guides for things like administration, data module creation, and then also report and dashboard creation. All of those topics in themselves are pretty advanced. I can't really give a thorough view on how to build a great dashboard in Cognos because it's a very advanced topic, and same for reporting. But those guides are, extremely extensive and can provide all the information needed. For the demo, I'm only going to show a brief couple of things because in true demo fashion, I've had some problems with my own environment today. Here's a Cloud Pak for AIOps cluster as mentioned. So I'm just logged in, I think as CP admin at the moment. And in the navigation now, you can see I've got the Cognos link. So if I go into here, I will be brought into Cognos Analytics. So it's installed in the same namespace. You can see from the URL, it's exactly the same setup. And yeah, here I am inside Cognos. I've got various bits of content that's been created before, and then can go in and start building stuff. Now, one of the key things I'd mentioned was the data flow. Obviously, I've been using Impact in the middle for now, but sadly, because of my current cluster issues, I don't have a data store with all the data and I wanted to show you, but I can give a quick idea of what you could do. Just quickly try and build a sample dashboard. So in here, I can select my data sources or data stores. So what I've got is a data module in Cognos that I created before. And this is just using an archive of alerts that we pumped out into a database. Within here, I can get a view of all the different columns in the database that I've got. There's a bunch of different fields in this example, and then what we can do is just drop in a bar chart. I mean, it's so easy. It's a drag and drop experience. Snap it into place in the corner if I want, expand it to be as big as I want, and then I can start dropping in the data that I actually want to see. So in this case, okay, let's say I'm interested in the different severity counts. So I can say, okay, I want severities as the bars, and I want the length of the bars to be represented by the severity counts. I'm just going to change that down here to, okay, so before I jump to that, so yeah, in Cognos on the right-hand side, you've got the different sort of fields and properties for whichever chart you've got selected. So you can see I've got the bars data there and the length data here. I can then go in and summarize that if I want. Oh, if I can do it properly, there we go. So now this is quickly showing me, okay, I've got Sev2 alerts, I've got over 1,000 compared to everything else. Also the coloring at the moment, this is just set to a default color scheme, but you can customize this and you can set this to represent the same colors that you'd have in the AIOps experience too. Obviously, one of the more interesting things we want to do is try and get in, say, the alert list. So as mentioned before, you can upload the alert list widgets and the topology viewer widget. It does take a second to spin up. Once it does, we'll be able to see the AIOps alert list. Now, again, to note, because of my demo situation, it's going to say there's no alerts available, but typically this would just show me whatever alerts were actually in my AIOps system at the time. Now, it's important to say that obviously the data in this is coming from my third-party database that I filled with data. So it's important for users to make sure that their data flow is set up correctly so that these two things will stay in sync. I think I'm going to leave it there. If anyone's interested in sort of more information on this stuff, feel free to reach out to me directly. I know the demo is a bit vague. One of the key things we're trying to do is create some proper out-of-the-box examples so users can get a proper, end-to-end view of what you can do with Cognos. And that will be coming in a future release as part of the production release, I'd expect. So yeah, until then, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. That was very insightful. Thank you for preparing all the material that you have just presented to us. Thank you, the audience, for spending time with us. And just to make it short, see you again in another video when it's time for AIOps Explained. Until then, bye.